Hello, it's welcome to video lesson number 11. Today we are multiplying fractions. For today's video lesson, you will need TOC number 11, which of course we gave you in class, a pen or pencil to take notes, highlighter, marker, colored pencil, something with color, and this is still part of the non-calculator section. All right, we are on the top of page 11, TOC 11, and we're going to do a quick review because when you are multiplying fractions, which I will tell you is so much easier than adding and subtracting fractions, but when you are multiplying fractions, you always have to convert mixed numbers into improper fractions. You can't ever multiply a mixed number. So we're going to review how to do that. If you look at our example on the right, we have 7 1/4. Our first step is to draw that magic C, which means I touch the denominator, go around the whole number, and touch the numerator. That reminds me to start with the denominator and multiply it times the whole number. So we would take 4 times 7, and then we're going to add the numerator, which is 1. And then that denominator is going to slide on over and stay the denominator. So looking at our example, we're going to write down that we're multiplying 4 times 7, and then we're going to add 1, and 4 stays our denominator. So 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29, and the 4 slides on over and stays the denominator. Okay, so let's do some practice. First step is to draw the magic C, so start at the 8, go around the 4, and touch the 2. And then we're going to multiply 4 times 8, or sorry, 8 times 4, and then we're going to add 2. And then 8 is going to stay our denominator. So 8 times 4 is 32, plus 2 gives us 34, and that stays over 8. So our next example, draw your magic C from the denominator of 2 around the whole number 2 and touching number 1. That means we're multiplying 2 times 2 and then adding 1. Our 2 is going to stay our denominator. And of course 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and 2 stays our denominator. So we end up with 5 halves. So pause the video, try the next two on your own, and then you can restart the video and see if you got them right. Welcome back. Hopefully you pause the video and you're not cheating. Draw your magic C, 8, around the 9 to the 3. We get 8 times 9, adding 3, and then this 8 is going to stay as our denominator. 8 times 9 is 72, add 3, and you get 75, and 8 is our denominator. Last example, we're going to multiply 5 times 5, adding 2. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 2 is 27, and 5 is still our denominator. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to multiply fractions. We've already converted, reminded you how to convert mixed numbers into improper. So the first question is going to be, are there any mixed numbers? If yes, convert those mixed numbers into improper fractions. We just practiced that. So if you look at this example, we have 2/3 times, and that little tiny dot means multiplication now. You're going to see us get away from the x because the x is going to become a variable. We'll talk about that later. So that little tiny dot means to multiply. So we have 2/3 times 4 1/5. First step, are there mixed numbers? Yes. Let's change that. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21 over 5. Then you're going to set the other fractions horizontally next to each other, which means side by side. With adding and subtracting, we did it up and down. That gave us room to move and write when we changed our denominators and things like that. You don't have to do that. So we're going to keep them side by side. So we're going to move that 2/3 right next to the 21/5. Then, this is why it's so much easier. You're just going to multiply the numerators, the top numbers, all the way across. It's like taking care of the top floor first. 2 times 21 is 42. And then, next step, multiply the bottom numbers or the denominators. 3 times 5 is 15. So I like to think of this as cleaning your house. You're going to clean the top floor all the way across before you take care of the bottom floor, because you don't want to be cleaning up and down those stairs. And then the last step is to simplify if possible. And with this example, both 42 and 15 could be divided by 3, and you would end up with 14 over 5. And then you can turn that back into a mixed number. So remember that simplifying does mean turning improper fractions back into mixed numbers. All right, flip your page over. We're going to do some practice problems on the back. We have 2/8 times 3/8. And I did throw some problems in there where you got the multiplication symbol that looks like an X. And then I've got some with the dot. So you're getting used to seeing both. But moving forward, you're going to see more of the dot than you are the X. So first step, I've already got them horizontal. So all I have to do, multiply that top floor. 2 times 3 is 6. 8 times 8 is 64. I ate and ate, got sick on the floor. 8 times 8 is 64. And both 6 and 64 are even. So I can divide them by 2. And when I divide them by 2, I end up with 3 over 32. Now, where you're going to run into problems with multiplying fractions is if you don't know your math facts and you don't know how to simplify. Because since you're multiplying, your numbers are going to get big fast. And so the bigger the numbers, the harder it is to see those common factors. So if they're both even, start with 2. Or look and see, can I do it with use 4 or can I use 3? Use those smaller numbers. You may have to simplify more than one time, but that will help. Looking at number 2, we have a mixed number, so we need to convert it. I'm going to multiply 7 times 4, which is 28, plus 2 more makes 30 over 7. Multiply that by 2/3. Just go straight across. 30 times 2 is 60. 7 times 3 is 21. And these can both be divided by 3. 60 divided by 3 gives me 20. And 21 divided by 3 gives me 7. And then I have to take that improper fraction and turn it into a mixed number. 7, when I try to divide it, 20 divided by 7, it's going to fit in 2 times with 6 left over. So I get 2 and 6/7. It's a lot of work, but it's not as many steps as adding and subtracting, which is why it's a little bit easier. All right, so the next one, I have 2 mixed numbers, so I have to convert them both. 1 and 4/7 becomes 11/7, and 1 and 2/3 becomes 5/3. So then I multiply straight across. 11 times 5 is 55, and 7 times 3 is 21. And I can't simplify those because they don't have a common factor, but I can turn them into a mixed number. So 21 goes into 55 2 times, and there will be 13 left over, and 21 remains our denominator. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. You're multiplying straight across your numerators, straight across your denominators, and then once you're finished, simplify and turn into a mixed number if needed. So looking at the last 3, if you want to pause the video and try these on your own first, you are more than welcome to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go through. If you are not really understanding, you can go through it with me. Number 4 is a straightforward. It's got 2 fractions, so we're just going to multiply across. 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 9 is 45. And I can simplify these both by dividing by 3, and I get 2/15. Looking at number 5, I have 6/11 times 1 7/8. Cannot multiply that mixed number, so I have to convert it to an improper fraction. So then I have 6/11 times 8 times 1 is 8 plus 7 is 15/8. Now see how these numbers are starting to get really big? So it gets a little bit more crazy. 6 times 15 is going to give you 90, and 11 times 8 is 88. And when I simplify that, it is improper, so I have to turn it into a mixed number, and I end up with 1 and 2/88. And when I divide them both by 2, I get 1 and 1/44. So you get some weird numbers, and they are pretty big. So just try to do the best you can with simplifying. Use your multiplication chart, but if you're still becoming dependent upon that, you might start practicing your math facts. All right, looking at the last example, we have 3 1/4 and 4 3/7. Turn them both into improper, and you get 13/4 and 31/7. Multiply straight across. 13 times 31, which I know is not nice and no pretty, no calculators either, no cheating. And you get 403 over 28. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Kind of think of it as 28's close to 30, and that'll help you with your division. And when you do your division, you end up getting 14 and 11/28. Not pretty, pretty ugly problem, I know. But you might have some like that, so be prepared. All right, last little bit that I'm going to show you is a math hack. I've shown you the basics of how to multiply fractions, and now I'm going to show you a shortcut. Now, this may be confusing for some of you, and if it is, don't worry, you don't have to use this. It's just a shortcut. So the shortcut is that before you get those big, huge numbers when you multiply, you're going to simplify or cross-simplify before you multiply. Let me show you what I mean. So look at your first example, number 7. I have 2 6 and 3/12. 2 over 6 can be simplified by dividing them both by 2, and it becomes 1/3. 3/12 can also be simplified by dividing them both by 3. If I divide them both by 3, I end up with 1/4. Now, look at the green numbers. Don't focus on those purple ones anymore because they're gone. We simplified them. So now we have 1/3 times 1/4. And we just multiply across like normal. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 4 is now 12. And I'm already done. I don't have to simplify because I did it before I multiplied. Now, could I have multiplied? Sure, you would have gotten 6 over 72. If you know your factors of 12, you would have recognized I could divide them both by 6, and you'd get 1/12, same answer. You just have to be able to recognize those larger numbers. Now, I'm going to show you another slightly different way that is another thing that you can do. Looking at number 8, we have mixed numbers. We need to change them to improper fractions. Watch my magic. Here we go. Poof! We get 26/12 because we multiplied 12 times 2 is 24 plus 2 is 26 over 12, and 44/10. Now, I could simplify both of them by dividing each by 2, but if I look at 26 and 10, I can divide them diagonally as well. So 26 and 10 can both be divided by 2. So then that becomes 13 and 5. But if I look at 12 and 44, I can divide them both by 4, which is much bigger. That's going to make my numbers even smaller because I do not want to multiply 26 times 44. If I divide both 12 and 44 by 4, I end up with 3 on the left and 11 on the right. So now when I multiply, I'm multiplying by 13 times 11, and that gives me 143, and 3 times 5, which is 15. Now, that's still pretty big, but it's not nearly as big as I would have had if I had multiplied 26 times 44. So now I'm going to divide, and when I divide, I get 9 and 8 are left over, so I have 9 and 8/15. All right, last one that I'm going to look at is number 9. I'm going to turn them into improper. Poof! Look at my magic. We have 6/5 and 18/15. Now, I cannot simplify 6 and 18 because they are not diagonally from each other. Diagonal means top and a bottom number, not a top and a top. But I can either simplify 6 and 15 by dividing them both by 3, or I'm going to choose to divide both 18 and 15 by 3 because those numbers are slightly bigger and I want them smaller. So divide 18 and 15 by 3 and you end up getting 6 over 5. Then I can multiply 6 times 6 is 36. 5 times 5, you should recognize from your perfect squares, is 25. And then when I do my division, I end up getting 1 and 11/25. And I'm done. I don't have to simplify anymore because it's already been done. So that is a math hack. Again, you don't have to use it, but it is a way to simplify those numbers before you multiply to keep your products or your answers smaller, so when you simplify, it's a little bit easier because you're doing it first. Now it is time to show what you know. Log in and take that homework quiz. Don't forget, if you do not take that homework quiz, you do not get full credit for your homework.